It follows transcripts of testimony from former FBI. Transcripts are shedding more light into FBI investigations into then candidate Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton's emails during the 2016 presidential election. The third and most recent transcript comes from former FBI agent Peter Strzok's closed-door testimony before Congress from June of last year. It follows transcripts of testimony from former FBI attorney Lisa Page and Justice Department official Bruce Orr. Joining me right now is the top Republican on that committee who made those transcripts public, Georgia Congressman Doug Collins. Congressman, it's good to have you on the program this morning. Thanks very much for joining us.
Glad to be here, Maria. It's good to see you.
And in looking at these transcripts, it's pretty clear of an issue that our viewers know very well, and our viewers have followed this for upwards of a year and a half, and they know from the beginning that there was no collusion and that these transcripts show an incredible amount of bias. Let's talk about some of the transcripts that you released. Peter Strzok's hatred of Donald Trump's influenced the investigation and evidence against Donald Trump. This was John Ratcliffe interviewing Peter Strzok, and this was after the text that said, Lisa Page says to him, he's not going to win, right? No, we'll stop him. And after that, Ratcliffe says, did Peter Strzok's hatred of Donald Trump influence the investigations and evidence against Donald Trump? Guess we'll never know, because he was never asked by the special counsel if, in fact, his hatred of Donald Trump influenced the way he handled this investigation, correct?
I think what we got to do is look at this. You're going to know because you can look at the proof, and that's why we're laying out the transcripts as we have. Peter Strzok was a man who thought he was untouchable. He became a hero in his mind's eye, and thinking that he was going to be able to control, and sometimes maybe showing off for his mistress at the time, Lisa Page. Let's never forget that. But also in his own role to grow up in the department. Peter Strzok was central going back to the email investigation, into the Russia investigation, into what became the Mueller investigation. So what we're seeing here is, yes, we see the bias. The transcripts reveal the bias. And when we see that Mr. Mueller actually got rid of him based on, his actions and those texts. So I think when we look at this together, we get a picture of someone who was brought up or allowed to grow, if you would, under the Department of Justice under President Obama, in which politics became the foremost word, not justice.
Yeah, I understand. So in other words, they were very heavy-handed with the investigation into Donald Trump on flimsy evidence, and yet they were very light on the investigation of Hillary Clinton. Another tweet that your colleague John Ratcliffe put out was after he interviewed Lisa Page, and you released this transcript as well. And he says, Ratcliffe writes, Lisa Page just confirmed to me under oath that the FBI was ordered by the Obama DOJ not to consider charging Hillary Clinton for gross negligence in the handling of classified information. Walk us through this tweet. So they all thought Hillary Clinton was guilty, but they were told from the DOJ, don't even think about it?
This is what there was two things that really came out of this, and I think one of the things was we just spoke about, and that seemed to be of that corrupt triumvirate of Page, McCabe, and Strzok. Strzok seemed to stand out as his very aggressive nature on what he thought about the president and his political bent. The second thing that really came out from this Lisa Page was, as I said, and I put out another tweet the other day, it says Loretta Lynch has some explaining to do, because what we have seen now is that beforehand she not only told Mr. Comey that this was not an investigation to consider it a matter, which is an interesting way of putting it, but also now we're seeing from Lisa Page's own testimony that the Department of Justice, which she headed, was saying gross negligence is not the standard that's going to be used here. They began to import what's called intent, which is not part of the law. So really from the early on, from April, May, and we know from May when Mr. Comey started writing, the group came together and they were going to look at gross negligence, but then began to write an exoneration of Ms. Clinton long before they ever even interviewed her. So we know this was coming from the top. So we now have a pattern here. Look at the pattern. You have Department of Justice and FBI on their own agenda with a political bent, hoping for Ms. Clinton to become president. That's sort of the takeaway over these first three transcripts.
And this was way before Loretta Lynch, then the AG, had a meeting on the tarmac with Bill Clinton just a few days before Hillary had her interview with the FBI, right? This was even before that.
Oh, Oh, very much so, Maria. We look at this. That was closer to the time when she said, "I won't be a part of the prosecutorial decision," which all of a sudden, in many ways, has become evident now. Gave James Comey what he believed was his Superman cape to go do whatever he wanted to do. But this was already in the works. Lisa Page transcripts confirmed this. This is why we release these in the way we're releasing them, so that people can begin to see what's happening here. We were in this investigation. Democrats and others were saying, "Why are you going back? Why are you doing this?" They made fun of the investigation the whole time. Well, now they've got a problem. I believe Mr. Mueller's report is going to come back and show that there was no collusion, which, by the way, is not a crime, but there's no collusion, nothing with the Trump administration, what they're going to find in the president himself. But what they are going to have to deal with now is the reality of influence and collusion among DOJ and FBI employees in an email investigation which was handled badly, that moved into a Russia investigation that was handled even worse, and then into a Mueller investigation. So these are the kind of things that the American people deserve to see, and that's why we're putting them out.
Now, Jim Baker was the key lawyer for the FBI. You've got transcripts on him as well. He had a closed-door meeting, and my sources say that in one of his meetings, he admitted that he wanted to charge HRC. He thought Hillary Clinton should be convicted of gross negligence. Now, are you going to be releasing that transcript soon?
There'll be more transcripts released. Baker will be one that we're looking at releasing. And yes, there has been some leaked information that Mr. Baker actually had that exactly what you talked about. This is why this is important, Maria, and I don't want any of the folks watching today to forget this. This is a pattern. This is not something that randomly happened. I'm tired of really the mainstream media saying the FBI was investigating Ms. Clinton. No, there was a group that was investigating and told that they couldn't do their job. Remember, she was not even interviewed till late after they had already started this discussion with the DOJ officials, probably including the Attorney General. She headed it, saying that we can't charge gross negligence. So they already knew the outcome, but went through the process. And Lisa Page's transcripts also reveal the fact that this was, sort of unusual. We also saw that with Strzok. We've heard it with many of these. That why would they interview a key witness, Ms. Clinton at the time, with key witnesses or fact witnesses in the room who had been granted immunity?
Yeah.
This just goes back to show the two layers of justice. There was a layer for Ms. Clinton, and then there was the level for Mr. Trump. They were not equal, and people understand it, whether you're Republican or Democrat or independent or don't care.
Oh, sure.
You can't have a Department of Justice like this.
My audience wants to know what happens now. I mean, Jerry Nadler has subpoena power, and he's the chairman of your committee. So, and Congressman, we just talked about the malfeasance going on with this cabal of people at the top of the FBI and the DOJ. Will we see accountability?
I believe we can, and I think that's in the new Attorney General. He has been, through his confirmation hearings, what he said when asked questions about this from Senator Graham, he said that he was willing to look into these issues that many of us have been talking about, which we got nothing on before
so
under the previous Attorney General or anything else.
Will we see prosecutions?
Look, my hope is if there's wrongdoing that it will be prosecuted, because if it's simply not prosecuted, look, two of the guys, McCabe and others, have been were fired. They were also under indictment. We understand these kind of things going on, so hopefully we'll see this actually prosecuted out.
So you were among those who voted for transparency with the Mueller report. As I understand it, the Mueller report will be out within the next 2 weeks. What was that 422-0 vote all about?
It was a political stunt by the Democrats who thought that they could divide Republicans into voting no upon it, because at the end of the day, after I looked at it when they dropped it, we looked at it, they said this is nothing but simply a first-year law student's restatement of what the regulations say that Mr. Barr is going to have to do. This is the sad part we're at right now, Maria. They have no agenda. They have nothing that they can actually put on the floor, so they wasted an entire week of the American taxpayers' dollar to actually put a report on the floor that said nothing basically except the same thing the regulations say that Mr. Barr needs to do. So we just called their bluff and just said, fine, we can vote for this because this is exactly what Bill Barr said he's going to do. Why are we wasting the American people's time?
But you have a structure in place. We have a structure in place, whereas under the rules, the Attorney General sees the report from the special counsel and then gives it to the chairman of the Judiciary Committee on the House side and the Senate side, so that every congressman does not have, it's like, you're giving it to every congressman and every senator. That's basically like giving it to the New York Times, right? If somebody is not charged with something, the police don't say, hey, we're not charging you, but guess what? There's all this other stuff that we were looking at. Maybe there's this fraud. Maybe there's that fraud. Doesn't this open a can of worms for the president?
No, it doesn't. I think what we got to understand here, and I think what we understand is, let's go back exactly what has to happen. Mueller will present some kind of report. All the paperwork says that it could be a report on what he's found, what his prosecutions were and what his declinations were, the ones he declined to prosecute. That is given to Bill Barr. Bill Barr at that point, then he makes what's called an explanation to basically 4 people that have to be notified. It doesn't say that we're the only ones or at the same time have to be notified, but we have to be notified. So it can be released to the public as long as we are notified. And I think what we have to look at is what he said in his confirmation hearings, that he wants to release as much as possible to make sure that this gets behind us and we move forward.
Right.
We know, and you know, as you said earlier, that there's not going to be collusion here. This is where it's going to be put it very hard for the Democrats. So all this was, and don't be fooled by this was simply a stunt because they thought they could divide Republicans to make, quote, us look bad as not being transparent. I have no problem being transparent when what we see is coming forward, and it's within the regulation itself. So this was nothing more than a political stunt.
Well, Adam Schiff continues to say he has more than circumstantial evidence that there was collusion. We'll see what he says after this drops. Is the Mueller report going to come out within the next 2 weeks, do you think? And what are you going to do about the fact that you don't have subpoena power? Jerry Nadler's in charge. He's going to bring down for questioning who he wants. So where are all these investigations going, Congressman?
Well, I think two things. First thing is this. Adam Schiff is the new Joe McCarthy from the Senate. He has always said, oh, I've got this evidence of collusion. We have it all here. Yet he never shows it. In fact, he actually has to back up. When we released the Bruce Orr transcript, it showed his own explanation of when some of this actually was dropped was wrong. It was in August. It was not after the election. Adam Schiff is just one, again, process away from spinning his own yarn. Jerry Nadler has subpoena power. He sent out 81 letters recently asking for information ranging on a wide topic. You almost know that they're concerned about Mueller not having what they want because only 30 of these letters actually had anything to do with Russia. When we come to this part, it's going to be very obvious that Mr. Nadler and others are responding to their base. They're responding to the pressures of their base who want to impeach the president and have wanted to since November of 2016. You're seeing a politically motivated agenda to impeach the president or to make the president look bad for the 2020 elections. And we're going to be fighting against this. We're going to be fighting the overreach. Right. We're going to be fighting to do what Congress is supposed to do, not the fishing trip that they want to be on. If Jerry wants to, if the chairman wants to come down and have a fishing trip, I got some great trout streams in North Georgia. I'll be happy to let him fish there, but he shouldn't be fishing with the American people's money on wasted topics. All
right, we will be watching this. What a story. Incredible. Congressman, good to see you. Thanks very much. We'll be waiting for your next drop of the transcript, probably Jerry Baker, Mr. Baker, or whomever else. Thank you, Congressman.